On a logarithmic chart, this is the growth of the S&P 500 during all of Bitcoin's history compared to Bitcoin. Probably the number one thing that we're doing in here that really puts you at an advantage as an investor and sets you up to really set yourself up, your future for yourself and your family to be really well on. I mean, everybody always goes, wow, Jeff, you bought Bitcoin at $70 and you've held all this time. That's so amazing. And a lot of people go like, oh, you're so lucky to have done it back then. And now is the time where we're all learning that it's not luck. It's actually really, really, really hard to hold Bitcoin through the periods of time that it actually goes up by 10x, 100x, 1000x, or whatever it is. These are massive returns. And when you don't live through making the massive returns, you just kind of do what I call yada, yada, yada it. You just go, okay, Jeff, you bought Bitcoin, yada, 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 bam, every $1,000 turned into millions of dollars, right? The yada, yada, yada part, it's kind of like, okay, you start an RIA, yada, 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 you have 10 billion under management, you're set. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the process, except for the fact that the yada, yada, yada is the part that is so hard, you can't skip over it and you can't yada, yada, yada it. So with crypto, the yada, yada, yada part is we're surrounded by basically hairless apes on a spinning rock who don't understand new technology. And we are a part of that. We're in this giant tribe. We're in this giant culture. We have this hive mind. And when something that we don't understand has a big event, people really freak out. There's all kinds of misinformation. And in the case of Bitcoin, as soon as you buy Bitcoin, it's just a matter of time before the rest of the tribe is going to bring you the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and the doubt. And the FUD is a lot of times going to be based on completely incorrect information, but in some cases, it's based on correct information that is a concern. So now, with this big correction, what's the big story? How do we make sense of this? That's the big thing here. Your advantage comes from any success that I have in aiming to help you make sense. So what do we make of this? China said we're going to crack down on crypto. When they first said it, I told you this is the third time they've done it in 7 years. Every time they've said that and they've never actually done something. Well, since then, we've now learned that they did actually do something. The miners, Bitcoin miners in China have been forced to shut down. So they've been actually unplugging their equipment. And the measurement of the computing power that secures the Bitcoin network is called the hash rate. The hash rate has gone way down, okay? And so a bunch of crypto mining infrastructure has been unplugged from China, put on jets, and flown over to the United States and other countries. So there is a correlation between hash power and price. Over time, hash power has just increased and increased as the price has increased and increased. So fundamentally, it is not a good thing for Bitcoin when the hash power goes down. So when the hash power goes down, if it goes down too far, the network could become unsecure. That begs the question, is the network unsecure? No, it's not. The amount of hash power that was unplugged is not creating a security vulnerability. If we zoom out, the big picture here is that something like, I want to say something like 20 to 40% of the mining hash power was just unplugged from Bitcoin, and it's still running without a CEO, without a chairman, without a government running it, without people running it at all. This is a piece of software that now you understand what we mean by decentralized and resilient. This is software that's so resilient, an entire country can unleash its biggest possible weapon of saying, you can't do this here. Force all of that mining activity out of that country. And yet Bitcoin is still printing blocks. It's still processing transactions. So that's the bullish take. What's the bearish take? Let's always look at the other side and see, like, Does it hold any weight, that argument? Well, the bearish take is the blocks are taking longer. The blocks are supposed to take 10 minutes. At one point last night, it was taking 2 hours. So this really highlights something else that brings us back to the bullish take. And I know I'm getting a little bit technical right at the very beginning. We're gonna get into simpler things in a moment. But every 2 weeks in Bitcoin, the creators of Bitcoin knew that there was going to be changes to the hash power, up and down. If the hash power goes up, the blocks become shorter, maybe only 5 minutes. If the hash power goes down, the blocks become longer, maybe 20 minutes or an hour or 2 hours like yesterday. The Bitcoin network genius automatically adjusts every 2 weeks to whatever the hash power is, and it renormalizes it back to 10-minute blocks. So this is called the difficulty adjustment. And I don't know if it's happened today or if it's just happened, but somewhere around right now, the largest difficulty adjustment in the entire history of Bitcoin is taking place. And that will basically renormalize the Bitcoin network to the amount of hashing power that we actually have. Then what's going to happen is all of these miners putting all their equipment on jets and moving them to largely the United States. A lot of them have already added on to existing mining infrastructure here in the US. And some of them, it's going to take weeks to months to plug back in. But what we can take away from this is that the hashing power is going to be coming right back up. And the security is going to be coming, I mean, the security is already, it's still unhackable, but it's still going to become even higher. And I think this is a testament to Bitcoin. What would happen if you took 40% of the banks offline in the United States?
That's exactly what I was thinking, Jeff. Like, how do you illustrate this in a way that people understand? Not that our members don't get this, but as advisors, if this comes, yeah, I mean, as advisors, that's a great illustration. That's exactly what I was thinking, Jeff, is what if you took 40% of banks off the table? What would happen to the economy?
Well, I mean, your transactions wouldn't go through.
Right?
If Chase got taken out, then and you had Chase as your credit card processor at your furniture store, you're not selling any furniture to people with credit or debit cards. Not only that, so first off, the transactions would not be processing, the ones that were going to go through those banks. What happens if a bunch of transactions, millions a day, don't process? Everybody freaks out. Then you would have a run on the banks. Then the whole system would collapse. So, and this is a real possibility. This is a real possibility that our banking system could collapse because it's all based on centralization. Going back to that book I've been recommending to you for weeks, The Starfish and the Spider. The banks are a spider where if you cut off its head, it's dead, right? So if a bunch of the banks go down at once, the whole banking system collapses. Okay, because it's centralized. It has these points of failure, points of attack. And not only, like a lot of things could make a big portion of our banking system go under. What if there was, and some people view this virus as a bio attack from China. We don't really know. We weren't allowed to ask this question a while back. Now it's allowed to be asked and it's being discussed, and we might find out that was the case. What if China or Russia attacked our financial infrastructure? Well, it's not as resilient as Bitcoin. Now, there are a lot more people and guns wanting to defend it, but what Bitcoin has is a technology that has more resilience at its core. So it's a very big story. I wanted to take some time away to make sure you understand. You were at a crossroads in history, and in the history books, this isn't going to be when Bitcoin died. Bitcoin has already died thousands of times, according to people who don't understand it. The historic moment that we're in right now is a moment where Bitcoin, once again, has been tested, and it has passed with flying colors in a way that the legacy systems could not possibly survive this kind of event. So that's pretty exciting to me. I honestly think that we might be in for a second half of the year that's going to involve more growth in the Bitcoin price than the first half of the year, because there's a lag between the meaning that we make here. It takes a while for that to work its way through society and turn into CNBC stories and all of that. Okay, I want to find a few stories to highlight. Time and time again, I just want to show you Like, however horrifying this might look, like, look how small these red candles are in the big picture 1 week candle logarithmic chart. This is a non-event in terms of price action. And a lot of people have been saying, oh, we're in a bear market. I don't know. I mean, if you just draw, I'm not a major chartist, but if you just try to find any kind of trend lines to any of this, it's like the trajectory that we're on from the big picture view is still nothing like, like if we add the S&P in here, so let's say we add SPY, right? Look at it. SPY is down here. Like, so most assets on a logarithmic chart look like a flat line, or maybe they're slightly tilted up. Okay, so that on a logarithmic chart, this is the growth of the S&P 500 during all of Bitcoin's history compared to Bitcoin. So I believe we're still in a bull market. I think we're just had a major interesting event. Okay, so let's kind of get through some stories here. This Bitcoin Mining Council, you remember Elon kind of kicked off the first FUD, pre-China FUD, and said, oh, we're not going to accept Bitcoin at Tesla anymore. We're worried about the environmental impact. We've covered it over and over. I've given you dozens of hard, factual-based articles of information that points out that Elon is wrong. Anybody who has this concern doesn't understand Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor, major Bitcoin bull, CEO of MicroStrategy, who holds over 100,000 Bitcoin on the treasury of his company, he has helped to assemble this Bitcoin Mining Council. And of the miners surveyed, 56% are using sustainable energy already. So, there's this ESG concern. A lot of it is kind of unfounded, but at the end of the day, it would be a good thing for more and more Bitcoin miners to use renewable energy. So the Bitcoin Mining Council has just published its first report. Another thing that I wanted to point out to you, so you remember, we've got Bitcoin and then we've got DeFi, decentralized finance. DeFi, it's mostly built on Ethereum. And people are starting to think about, people are starting to watch, like, these are like new animals. If you want to think of human organization almost like species, it's like we have just seen an evolution occur where there's new species. So like if you read your history books, you remember about the Dutch East India Company, right? And that was when Europeans kind of invented the stock, or invented the corporation, where people could invest in a common enterprise, and then they could basically send ships around trading and exploring, right? That was kind of the genesis of the corporation, the shareholder corporation as we know it today. And just think about it, it's like, it's ubiquitous. The shareholder corporation is everywhere. Our entire stock and bond market is made out of these shareholder corporations. What we're dealing with is so new and powerful that, like, if you were to view Bitcoin as a company, it got to $1 trillion market cap way faster than any company in history. Now, you can also think about these DeFi protocols, like we've talked about. Do these names look familiar? When we started creating a short list of things you should consider in your DeFi portfolio, we did talk about Uniswap, Compound, Aave, SushiSwap, Nexus Mutual, Yearn, Synthetics, right? So these are all the ones that we've talked about, and there are some other ones. If you want to look at these and think about, this is almost like a next generation corporation, then these are companies basically with a balance sheet with billions of dollars on them in the case of Uniswap and Compound. And if you want to have sort of another really big picture view of how this market is growing, you can look at DeFiPulse.com. So this chart, I wish they would show it on log, but this chart just shows that summer of 2020 we were at $1 billion worth of value in the DeFi ecosystem. Today, we're at June 30th, and we have 54 billion tied up in use in the DeFi system, whereas June 30th of last year, we had 2.4. So if you're just looking for kind of big picture metrics to gauge what's going on, we are still in the midst of massive, massive growth. Germany will allow 4,000 investment funds that manage 1.8 trillion to invest up to 20% of that 1.8 trillion into Bitcoin starting yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on that. ARK Invest, you may have heard Kathy Wood, ARK Invest. They have filed to create a Bitcoin ETF. So we will, yeah, the SEC continues to postpone, so it's not approved yet. But here's the filing on that, keeping an eye on that. Here, there was a Federal Reserve speech that happened last year. And if we just kind of look right here at the last paragraph, they're saying, we do not need to fear stable coins. The Federal Reserve has traditionally supported responsible private sector innovation. Consistent with this tradition, I believe we must take strong account of the potential benefits of stable coins, including the fact that they might support the role of the dollar in the global economy. Okay, so everybody's always afraid of new things. So they think of how could this go wrong and how could this go wrong? This regulator, that regulator, this government, they could all not like Bitcoin because people still don't understand it's a starfish. If the regulator cuts the starfish in half, there's no head, it splits in two, they grow back, now you have two starfish, right? So, but even then, the Federal Reserve, which you could think is the largest governing body, the top of the pyramid of the global power structure, you know, at least publicly saying that, yeah, hey, maybe we should not fear these stable coins. And here's some of the materials actually that Bridgewater, Ray Dalio, presented to the Federal Reserve. I'll give a link to that in the community area. Also coming up on the story of El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as their legal tender, or passing the law at least. 1,500 new Bitcoin ATMs are being established in El Salvador. So El Salvador citizens, as they are being encouraged by their government to utilize Bitcoin, in that small country, there's gonna be 1,500 ATMs where they can just go exchange between Bitcoin and fiat currency. Compared to 1997, Bitcoin has roughly about the same users as the internet, but it's growing at a faster pace. So just think about this. If you could go back in time in a time machine and buy Amazon and Google and those early stages, late 90s, early 2000s, like how well would you have done? That's where we still are in terms of the actual fundamentals of Bitcoin. El Salvador is also giving $30 worth of Bitcoin. The government is giving $30 worth of Bitcoin to all their citizens. So this is like $180 million, kind of almost like stimulus. So they're stimulating their citizens with Bitcoin. And remember, every Bitcoin is 100 million transactable units. So $30 worth of Bitcoin is actually quite a lot of transactable units. So that could really jumpstart El Salvador. We should keep a close eye on that. Also, regulators had some guidance that was really terrible and misunderstood and kind of heavy-handed for some new regulation that they were going to finalize, and they delayed it because it got a lot of pushback from the crypto industry. And now that you've got MicroStrategy, you've got Square, you've got Coinbase as a publicly traded company, I think we're starting to see some lobbying power defending crypto from heavy-handed regulation. This is just a good big picture to look at the performance from January of 2020 to the present. And the S&P 500 is up 32%, oil is up 21%, real estate is up 5%, or at least the DWRTF fund. Gold is up 18%, and then of course look at crypto. Ethereum up 1,400, Bitcoin up 375, Polkadot, Uniswap 464%.